Time for Morse Code of Weather. We've been talking a lot about tornadoes, unfortunately, this week after some touchdown in parts of the state. So, Jacob, you are here to tell us more about the science behind those tornadoes.
Correct, yeah. And last week we talked about all the severe weather ingredients in order to just create a severe thunderstorm. But there's even more that we need to overcome. A perfect storm needs to happen in order for a tornado to form. So we'll get in. Remember these 4 severe weather ingredients that we talked about last week, with shear being one of the most ingredients, most important ingredients, and that's the change in wind direction or speed with height. But you also need the lift, the instability, and the moisture. And we're going to talk about that tornado genesis process. So there's a couple of professors at my alma mater, Penn State, that have done a lot of research in this over the years, and this is generally the consensus of how tornadoes form. But there is still a lot of ongoing research because tornadoes still happen to be a little bit of a mystery because there's such a complicated meteorological phenomenon. But one of the things we talked about was wind shear last week, and that's the changing of winds in speed or direction with height. So we can imagine that as a rotating or a spinning football. As that spinning air gets sucked up into a large thunderstorm cloud, what we call the updraft, that rotation gets tilted into the vertical. But this is very large scale rotation. We're talking 10 to 20,000 feet above the ground in these big billowing cumulonimbus clouds called supercells. So this creates our big rotating updraft. The secondary stream of air comes in on the backside, and that's where we can get our tornado to form from our descending air in front or behind of the supercell thunderstorm. But first, let's focus on that big mesocyclone or supercell. And again, that's that big rotating cloud way up in the atmosphere, goes thousands of feet up. And this was a picture a couple weeks ago near Minot with a big picturesque supercell there when you have all these striations, the wind sculpted clouds that form this large supercell. And again, this huge thing is rotating like a top. So that creates, that's kind of the step one that we need. Again, that wind shear creates our rotating large stream of air coming into the storm, and as it's tilted upwards because of rising warm air with our updraft, we get that big rotating supercell to form. Now, when we see this on radar, a hook echo is generally what we look for when we're trying to identify where a tornado will be. So this is our strong mesocyclone, or that really rapidly spinning wall of clouds a couple thousand feet above the ground, but all the precipitation is usually displaced up in front of the storm. So we call that our downdraft area or our forward flank in front of the storm, but there's also descending air behind the storm. So all of these ingredients come together, and when you have downdrafts, you also have gust fronts. So air that's descending, or cooler air, spreads out when it reaches the ground. So here's a real life image. We have that big cloud, this big supercell above us, but there's rain-cooled air that descends to the ground and spreads out. So as that spreads out in all directions, we also get some rotation that forms. So again, here's our forward flank ahead of the storm and our rear flank behind where our tornado would form. So the development of rotation next to the ground requires that downdraft, or requires that sinking air ahead or behind the storm. So here's when we get into that tornado formation process. We already have our big mid-level mesocyclone, meaning that big rotating cloud of thunderstorm a couple thousand feet above the ground. But we need that low-level rotation to come in on the rear side of the storm. So as this slightly cooler downdraft comes in, it gets sucked into the bottom of the storm, it gets tilted upwards because of the surrounding wind fields. And this is rotating in the first place because of you have warm air and cool air that are kind of clashing with each other, and that creates for temperature differences and rotation. But as this gets drawn in, it increases its rotation. It increases its speed because of that figure skating effect. When you bring your arms in as a figure skater, you're rotating faster. So the wind gets drawn in, gets sucked in, and it's rotating a lot faster. As it gets tilted into the vertical direction, it is allowed to stretch vertically because of that big rotating cloud a couple thousand feet up, our big supercell thunderstorm. The stronger that supercell, the more our air could be sucked up, the faster that rotation becomes, and we can get our condensation funnel to reach the ground, and that's when a tornado is officially classified as a tornado, once we have that rotation that makes contact with the ground. The stronger this rotation is aloft, the stronger our supercell thunderstorm is, the more suction that there'll be for that rotation, that again we have in the horizontal, to be rotated into the vertical. So here's that example from earlier this week. We had a couple of boundaries that clashed with each other that enhanced the low-level rotation. And this was a very picturesque tornado because it was a low precipitation supercell. There wasn't a whole lot of precipitation surrounding the storm, so we could see it very clearly. And you don't always need that condensation funnel or the cloud to reach the ground. You just need for the very fast winds to reach the ground, and you can kick up dust and stuff like that. But very interesting, ongoing research that still goes into the tornado genesis process, but there is just hopefully a small overview of what happens inside one of those strong supercells.
Yeah, those pictures and videos from this week were just crazy.
I know, yeah. One of the craziest tornado footage and pictures that I've seen in a long time, especially for North Dakota.
Right, no kidding.
Yeah, absolutely. And with this one, we had 2. That doesn't happen very often, especially in North Dakota.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, good stuff. Thanks as always, Jacob.